Innovation and Design Thinking. IDT. VTU. Design Thinking for Strategic Innovations. Business Challenge Standardization. Design Thinking Solution Humanization. Business Challenge 6. Standardization. Standardization is a necessary cost driver for every company. It is a means to achieve operational cost and performance efficiencies by streamlining activities, leveraging technologies, and maintaining employee workflow to reduce operating costs. But standardizing practices can mean losing the personal touch, reducing the choices customers have, and disconnecting employees. This is the balancing act every company must master. How do you stay lean, mean, and efficient while maintaining the human qualities that will ultimately endear you to people? To streamline operations and be as profitably productive as possible, every company seeks to better leverage the powers of enterprise technology, design rule-driven workflows, and automate repetitive tasks. It makes sense not to reinvent the wheel every time you need to go for a drive. Regardless of the reasons for pursuing it, however, the race for standardization can come at a serious and often unforeseen expense. Like companies, many people prefer efficiency to inefficiency. We like reliability. We like consistency. And we like to do things well and quickly. But we also like a degree of feeling in what we do. When a company's primary focus is on making standardization its priority, it can lose sight of the emotional quotient of its brand and alienate consumers. Here, for example, a standardization of market research practices can fail to see real human needs. A standardization of product design practices can get sucked into looking no further than today's coolest feature. A standardization of segmentation can miss valuable opportunities to serve the underserved. And an internal mandate for standardization can take some stakeholders' eyes off the real prize of today, a customer-centric culture. Contrary to what some design-minded authors will tell you, this critique of standardization is not based on a belief that companies that value sameness will be less successful in innovation than companies that value difference. Like people, companies are complex creatures, each with its own history, qualities, and characteristics that, when it comes to innovation, cannot be reduced down to the kind of top 10 ways list that proliferates. Standardization can make internal processes more efficient and effective. It can clearly establish common goals of performance that every employee must meet. It can provide common platforms that make a supply chain run faster and cheaper. It can be a rallying cry for product departments to make life simpler and more pleasant for consumers through the simplicity of design. One of the most common challenges that clients in industries from consumer packaged goods to technology raise with the teams when we are scoping out a project is that no matter how great an insight or idea might be, it will ultimately be subjected to company standards. In some cases, the standardization of legacy manufacturing poses a big challenge to innovation. How do you maintain operational efficiencies without sacrificing innovation opportunities and the human lens through which they will ultimately be identified? Although every good consulting firm worth its billable hours understands that it's going to be a very long, uphill battle to get a company that sells circles to consider squares, clients, particularly in the world of packaged food, are often quick to point out how their company's innovation capabilities are restricted by factors such as size, shape, and ingredients. We all know why the machines were made the way they were made 20 or 30 years ago, efficiency, but that shouldn't stop us from considering a day where squares sell more than circles because consumers need or want them. Here, the standardization of the past can restrict the opportunities of the future. In other cases, we deploy anthropologists to perform contextual inquiries, and they use the simplest, most concise, and most engaging language to communicate the value of an insight that they believe could be leveraged to create real competitive differentiation for a client. But when the client's market research department has such a fixed and highly rigid way of approaching, thinking about, and talking about customers and how it identifies their so-called needs using words such as target, segment, actionable, and the worst ever, reason to believe, standardization becomes the enemy of innovation. It restricts vision. It dampens empathy. And it ultimately causes companies to miss out on potentially transformative opportunities. The balancing act of standardization is a difficult one. How do you maintain operational efficiencies without sacrificing innovation opportunities and the human lens through which they will ultimately be identified? Design thinking solution. Humanization. Great design refutes standardization in favor of the gentler, more human, and more emotional aspects of customer experience. It is the joy, sadness, laughter, and anxiety found in each can of soda, user interface, and public transit terminal that customers might not be able to openly describe but nonetheless deeply feel. Design thinkers are sensitive to the human touch points that encourage and foster such emotions as profound moments of attachment to a product, service, or brand. The lack of humanization in experiences is not always purposeful but rather naturally occurs as standardization takes hold. A physician who treats cuts of an injured patient during an emergency must detach from emotion in order to give everyone what they need. Similarly, products, services, and business models naturally detach from the softer side of life to operate efficiently. But ultimately, customers do not care about the operations behind their favorite coffee brand. They care about the exhilaration they feel when they have a cup of coffee in their hands. Design thinkers remind businesses that they are ultimately responding to human values, beliefs, and needs. They understand that efficiency and standardization will always have a place in business processes but recognize that it is the human touch points that resonate most in real-life customer experience to give products, services, and brands true value and meaning. Humanization from and within culture. Great design is only as good as its ability to connect and forge relationships with the people who ultimately use it. This means that the first task of great design is to understand the cultural touch points to humanization that make such relationships possible. Culture is the shared values, beliefs, and performances that define a group of people and their behaviors. Without a thorough understanding of culture, businesses cannot understand the human emotions that either make or break customer experiences. As a valuable tool in design thinking, culture is a springboard for unpacking opportunities for humanization in design. Understanding culture means unpacking all the social meanings and emotions that define a particular customer's experience. For example, drinking coffee can involve the emotions associated with enjoying that wistful first cup on a foggy Saturday morning, recovering from a college all-night study party, or kicking back for an after-dinner release after overindulging at a favorite restaurant. It is a unit of cultural capital for the barista, the coffee connoisseur, and the housewife who wants her special treat when the kids take their nap. So many emotions and contexts define the coffee experience. Design thinkers unpack each coffee context in search of humanization opportunities. From this, a more holistic picture of drinking coffee in the real world emerges, defining what coffee means to consumers in their everyday lives. More culturally relevant designs ensue, providing brands meaningful customer interactions that stand the test of time. Humanization doesn't just come from culture, it is also produced from within cultures. Designers, like the businesses they work for, are people who impart social values and beliefs on the things they produce. Design thinkers seek to understand the cultures not only of others, but also of themselves, recognizing that their own emotions, practices, and belief systems inform what, how, and why they do what they do. To balance this, design thinkers encourage a dialogue between everyone in the product or service ecosystem by consulting with the company, their partners, brand representatives, and end customers. The essence of being human is that one does not seek perfection. George Orwell. Humanizing through language. Consider the language that most business people use today: target, driving performance, leveraging outcomes, actionable, and other taglines that make managers feel like they are in some kind of special group. Here, the language of power, pragmatism, and predictability creates the illusion that businesses are machines. They are not. Businesses are organizational cultures filled with human beings who define and attach value to what they do every day. And they are also organizational cultures that should be fulfilling human needs. If all businesses are human enterprises that produce things made for human beings, it is time to start humanizing the business narrative. Design thinking seeks to reinsert human-centered qualities that can introduce new meaning. This means using real talk about the personal histories, dreams, and desires that define each worker, team, business unit, and office to produce human narratives of company culture that resonate worldwide. Each worker is not a cog in the wheel. The worker that goes to work also goes to home. It is worn by a person with a meaningful life, and that is a valuable brand story of not just what a company does but who a company is, its people. Thinking points. One route to greater humanization is reassessing how your organization does research on consumers and talks about or represents them. On the research front, consider hiring people who are specialists in human culture, sociologists, anthropologists, and other social scientists who specialize in understanding us without putting us in focus group facilities and looking at tracking studies. Humanization can be leveraged by usability, human factors, customer experience design, and brand storytelling. All customers, employees, and their friends are part of your story network and can all be part of your humanization design if you let them bring their humanity to your brand or organization. They'll also bring your brand into their networks and their lives. Brands that have been humanized attract and sustain communities of real-life people and make customers more forgiving when organizations make mistakes. Thanks for watching. Comment for any suggestions. Like, share and subscribe for more videos.